Hello, John.
One.
And today we're going to talk about a very sad topic. It's homeless. The census figures came out. I'm going to give you a few statistics and then we're going to talk about it, okay? So 1 in 5 homeless adults were in work on census night, which is really kind of sad that they're working and they don't have a home. 1 in 10 have a third level education. The CSO has stated on census night 10,300 people were homeless. 13,866 people were living in emergency accommodation on census night. The average age of the homeless person was 29 years old. Most were single. They don't say whether they were male or female or where they were from. 1,400 homeless families on census night. 711 one-parent families with children. 576 couples with children. 1,000 homeless couldn't work because of disability or sickness. On census night, 13% of homeless had no formal education, only primary school, which is quite sad. So quite alarming figures, as you can see on census night. This is 2022 now, census night, okay?
Not that long ago.
Not that long ago.
And so the figures and the fact that it is mentioned about the census indicates in some way that they were Irish, because people from other jurisdictions would hardly be filling in census forms. But then we don't know for sure the amount of people. And more people that had no husband had children, some one and some two, which is a very sad affair, because a child needs a mother and a father for stability. And then there was a less number, 500 and odd, 70 or something couples that were married with children, and some two, three, or four. So it's very stressful on children to be in that situation, because they need stability, don't they? And if they're homeless, how are they able to go to school, or where do they go? So there's a lot of hardship there. And then they mentioned there was some third level ones, and people in work that were not able to have a proper accommodation, and were, to all intents and purposes, homeless. And that's even worse with the third level. And then some people didn't have a formal education. They might have been not able to read or write, for all I know. Mentioned they might have left school at 14 or whatever it is, but sometimes they don't actually know how to read, write, and do the various things that you need in life if you have even that sort of an education, because the 3 R's should be taught, and most children should be taught how to do those things. But then it depends on what sort of homes they're coming from. Is there a knock-on effect from homes? These are statistics, are cold facts, and the Christian TV Ireland project, when it gets going, we'll be talking to these people to find out what is the basis, and a variety of people, not just the one sort, spreading it, so as to see what's the cause, and so on and so forth, and find out, because I don't think the media that we're saddled with here does that sort of thing. It's usually an investigation to find fault, but we want to find out what people are experiencing, and I presume all the local authority officers are inundated with people in the business of looking for emergency accommodation and all the rest of it. And when I say emergency, where does that take place? What's the emergency accommodation? Is it in hostels or what? So there's a scarcity of the ins and outs of the situation. And John Malone, Augustine Malone, would like to know, on behalf of the Christian TV Ireland project, what the people, especially the people working, the people with third level, and the variety of people, not just a certain section, to the mix, and to talk to them, and about what about the children, and then the mothers that just have no husband or somebody providing for the upkeep, to talk about what happened there. At least I brought a child into the world. Now perhaps many of these children are not being born because of the business of the abortion, and they haven't got a support from whoever it is that caused them to be pregnant and expecting a child. So there's a lot of issues around these things, and I think I would like to find out in more detail by talking to these in due course, please God, when we have some kind of a little uh, television station on the go. It won't be a big undertaking. It'll be humble enough, but it'll be able to do these things, to find out, because there's a lot of social issues around this, and the statistics are very cold in some ways, and they don't give you the fact to give you the sort of breakdown and so on and so forth. But there's more to life than that, isn't there?
There is indeed. I would imagine, like, that they're the homeless are in shelters. They're in places like maybe the Salvation Army. They're in hotels. They're in hostels. They're in B&Bs, Airbnbs. I'd say there's a mixture of places. One thing I've seen around Dublin is, um, like Grand Canal, is that you'll find tents anywhere now, and that you see people living in vans, and you see people living in these makeshift. They're living in cars, and it's become very American.
Right, right. Well, God help them. It's not no way to live, because what about toilet facilities and so on and so forth? We were talking about the lack of public toilets in Dublin, which is a disgrace to any civilized country to be in such a dreadful lack of amenities for the Irish people
What
in
was
the country.
What was
Hmm?
shocking, John, is that 1 in 5 homeless were in work. So these people are
Right.
holding down a job, okay? They're homeless. They can't afford to live, and they're doing probably 40 hours a week. I mean, that's just outrageous.
It is, and it's a symptom of a problem. And now there's issues that's affecting this, and I can see in a lot of places in Dublin, and most of the homeless, I think, are located in Dublin, as far as I know. I'm not aware of it being a factor in other parts of the country. It's a Dublin problem primarily, and people might be encouraged, to my way of thinking, to perhaps relocate somewhere where they can get accommodation, and suitable accommodation. Now, I know in different parts of the country, in the East Coast, I know, for example, in Mosney, which used to be a holiday camp for people to go, and it was very nice, and there used to be entertainment and all the rest of it. But it's been occupied by asylum seekers or people from other countries, and for the last good number of years, and they were invited to be housed, but they refused. They were very happy where they are in this environment, and this was for Irish people to go on holidays. It was not so expensive, and there was great entertainment. Myself and my wife went to us many a time. Well, not many a time, a couple of times, and it was very enjoyable. And there was another one that Fergal Quinn's father started in Red Island holiday camp in Skerries. And he was a far-seeing man, Fergal Quinn's father, from Newry, from the north, and they were very good at what they started as a need. Now, whether those camps are still on the go and perhaps occupied by people from asylum seekers or wherever it is. So there's a lot of factors affecting the vis-a-vis the accommodation. And I know in Dundalk as well, there's a lot of what was supposed to be exclusive apartments for people in work turned out to be now it's occupied primarily by people from Africa and other parts of the country, and I don't know if there's any Irish in it at all.
Hmm.
So it's known as Coconut Grove. So um, that's just a colloquial sort of expression. So this is very strange. And when we had an apartment in Navan in a place, 70% or more of all the apartments were occupied by people from other countries,
Okay.
not Irish. So this is affecting accommodation to my way of thinking. And I think the people in charge in the country that allow this situation to develop have a responsibility to
I th-
rectify
I
the problem that they have allowed to come about, and hence Irish people are homeless
I think, John,
because
look,
there's so many
we
others occupied property.
we have mentioned already in a previous video that, look, there's nothing wrong with people coming into the country. That's what you need. You need immigrants. But the thing about it is, the government left in, I think, in the last 2 years, 250,000 people. Okay, but we still seem to have a shortage of carpenters, electricians, plumbers. So they're not letting in, they're not filtering who they're bringing in. They need to bring in people who are qualified tradespeople into the country to start building houses for all these immigrants that are coming in.
Well, they need to have been doing that, they have a project now we're talking about Hildegard Naughton and a project to try and have things proper for the next until 2040 or something or
Hmm.
thereabouts, and that's prudent. But it's a pity that that sort of policy wasn't in force because I mean they're long enough running being in charge of the government and country and trying to negotiate, but I have a feeling that they didn't act very prudent. And when you're running a government or running a business or running anything, you've got to be prudent, haven't you? And
Hmm.
see what you can accommodate and what you can't, and what puts a strain on the whole edifice, shall we say.
Hmm.
And from my perspective, they have been completely imprudent and have not done the job that they were elected to do from the point of view of facilitating Irish people. And don't forget, we had over 1 million or more to emigrate in the 50s and 60s, and there were labourers that hadn't got an education in the full sense of the word, and they helped to build all the roads in Britain and this, that, and the other. Point Fusiliers, they used to call them. He was a big builder in Britain, and likewise Murphys were big builders. They were an Irish company that started there and employed thousands. So we had that problem, do you see? So, like, some of them were allowed to come back and have come back and settled in different parts of the country. They didn't exactly make for Dublin. They located where they came from and have been a great asset. So we have suffered enough in the past, and I have a feeling that the people that were elected to govern and govern wisely and prudently have not done so for the good of the orderly development of the country. By all means, help people that are suffering persecution, perhaps. But I think a lot of the people that have come here didn't suffer that.
Yeah, the thing is,
You
we
know, they,
we spoke previously about Shackleton Mill, and that the Shackleton family in the late 1850s, I think it was, they started providing accommodation in Lucan for their staff, and you can see we've gone full circle now. When you see Michael O'Leary from Ryanair providing staff for providing housing for his staff, and this is the way it's gone. That the employer now almost has to not just give the person a job in Dublin, but they also have to give them accommodation.
yes, or help to do it, and families have done it. If it wasn't for families that had been prudent during their life and had some acquired some disposable income, they're actually helping their families to have sufficient deposit and so on and so forth to be able to buy a house. And in some cases, they have allowed them to live in their own house and uh, had smaller accommodation themselves in this the biggish house. They've done that, so families have helped a lot of the ones that otherwise might have been in the homeless sector as well. So these are all the factors, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
we also have
yeah,
the knock-on effect that when there's no accommodation and when all the hotels are full, you've no tourism, and if you've no tourism, the restaurants and the pubs suffer. You know?
correct. And that's why a lot of them closed. We did one about that because tourists are not coming the way they used to.
Yeah.
And there's a lack of tourists. We have visitors, but we don't seem to have the sort of tourists that I used to come across in hotels. I remember years ago when I was staying in hotels, the like at the Tower Hotel in Waterford, which is a good hotel. It's probably very expensive now, but it was within one's means. And I often met people with big tour groups from the United States and had many a good chat with them because they're chatty. They like to talk and
Mm.
share news. And there would have been some of them would have been their parents or grandparents or great grandparents might have emigrated from here when we had really bad trouble and starvation. They emigrated to the United States, especially, and they did well there, even though they were at the bottom of the pile. But they managed to sort of with the grit that they had to come up and be a force to be reckoned with. And have done very well. Thank you very much. So they did that. So like we did have this problem of our Irish people being pushed aside when the British were here and all the rest of it. Now our own government is doing something similar, I'm afraid. And I want to just address this. So when the Christian TV all and gets going, we're going to be inquiring into all this and speaking to the people and find out what is, what happened and so on and so forth, and see what we can do because we want to hear from them. I think we want to hear from them.
So there you go. It's a very sad situation, and I just want to say to you that I did watch a video there last night, um, on I think it was a YouTube that there was a woman living in a very tall building now, not a skyscraper, but a tall building a couple of floors high in New York. And she was a lovely, lovely lady. And she was living inside one of those neon signs, one of those signs that light up, okay? And it has its own little shed. And the poor woman was living there, and she was about 30 years of age. She was very respectable, and she was showering, probably like some homeless people in Ireland, in the local gym, and she was going to work every day. She didn't have a drug issue. She didn't have an alcohol issue. Okay, I'll put the link in the description um of this video. But I felt so sorry for her because here you had an educated woman. The guards or the police, the American police, were very, very nice to her. They're very polite, very respectful. She had a great conversation with them, and her main concern was that her small amount of possessions, they wanted her out of it straight away. And she says, but I have a few special things here. She says, and they said, I'm sorry, but you can take them with you now, but you're leaving with us now. You're not coming back to this place. That the owner is afraid in case when you're climbing that ladder at the side of the building that you're going to fall off and you're going to die one of these days. And she said, yeah, but I'm not drunk and I don't take drugs and I don't do anything, blah, blah, blah. And they said, no, I'm sorry. Look, you're coming with us. We're very, very sorry. But these are the predicaments that people are finding themselves in, both in America and in Ireland. And the problem is, okay, that it will eventually lead to someone's death. And this something will happen along the line. Somebody will be in the wrong place, wrong time in accommodation, and something will go wrong, and that's the danger.
It is. It is. Well, you see, the authorities there are failing in their responsibility, and they're focusing on a lot of other old nonsense. And of course, they've all sorts of secular anti-family policies involved in New York. My my good friend Eamon's son is in is in New York, and a respectable looking area in Queens, and it's a disaster now. According to him, it's just not fit for purpose. So there's a breakdown in the sort of orderly way, and that's the result of bad management and for the good of the people. The lady that you spoke of was suddenly being under the police, and at the end of the day, like there was no sort of, what would I call it, period for her to manage to try and find some place to get some accommodation. I know there was a good program one time on EWTN, and no, Mr. Flynn, Colin Flynn, uh, books on EWTN, and he was in New York, and he was doing a great job of talking to people and getting the picture. He's very talented, and he's in the Vatican. He's not used the way he should be used. He just has more ability than the whole heap of them over there. But to my way of thinking. But in New York, he spoke to a third generation Italian that had built an apartment, and he had people in it, young people and people that might have been, and he gave them because of the COVID thing at the time, he didn't charge the manager. So he was a very good Christian man, which he had his own little domestic altar in the garage, and it was great to hear somebody like that. And that's what Colin Flynn, he was able to find those type of people,
Yeah.
that's doing good. And there might be other people like that in New York. I think the girl would, wherever she was from, if she come from some other part of the country, shall we say, she might be advised to sort of leave New York and go somewhere where there's a bit of more cooperation, and a person that had qualification that can work would be able to afford a home. But bail out in New York would be my advice. The same as in Dublin, bail out of it. And I think accommodation might be more affordable than elsewhere. What's the point of living in Dublin when you can't go anywhere? You can't even, if you have a car, you might as well leave it at home. They don't want cars.
They don't want cars. Now,
So that's
tomorrow we're going to be doing a chat about a very interesting businessman. For anybody who's tuning in, he was one of Dublin's very, very clever businessmen. I'll send you the link later on. Anyway, so there we go. It's hopefully the
yeah.
situation can only get better and not worse.
Well, as I said, the Christian TV Ireland will be talking to them, and when we're doing our hymns in Grafton Street in due course, we might come across some of them, because we that's the way we intend to approach things. We're not going to just um, we're going to try to cater for all these people that's, to my way of thinking, abandoned.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you very much, Oliver.